Blood is the guy who walks up to you and like asks you a question and nobody just wants to look at it. They're just like, oh, let's just pretend he's not there. Let's just not deal with it. Nobody wants to play against Blood. Yeah, see no evil, hear no evil, hear no blood. Belphegor hasn't seen the light of day for the entire tournament today, so
Right.
you know, I think that Heartbind question is very interesting, right? Because Meow is definitely bringing some creative lists today and trying to make it work, you know, and we've seen kind of a struggle, right, in both these players. On Meow's side, there were some plays that, you know, maybe we could debate back and forth about the diverging paths that were offered and which one Meow decided to go on, and for Akamarured as well, so a match between two players looking to make the championship happen, but they are on the verge of elimination here. Dragon versus Blood is going to kick things off. Guys, take it away.
It's interesting to me that Akamarured actually chose to go with Dragon first after allowing Vengeance Blood through. I think this is almost just asking for a loss in game one. Tell me what you feel about this.
Potentially. Akamarured did see probably what Meow's Shadow List was capable of against Control, and he is playing a pretty slow lineup, so him banning Shadow I think is very interesting. However, this is so risky. I mean, you can less predict, I think, what Vengeance Blood is capable of as opposed to a very teched mid-Shadow list. But
Right.
with that said, bringing Dragon first against him is like, what, did you think Meow was going to play King Elephant first? I don't think he's really...
Right.
Has he done that today?
I don't think he has, first of all. What does this say? Let's have fun. Meow.
Meow.
Nice. Nice. Yes, let's have fun, guys. But yeah, so like, it's just banning Shadow I think is great because Shadow's good. His Shadow deck is good against every single deck that I think Akamarured has. So the ban is appropriate. However, leaving Vengeance Blood through and then playing Dragon first against it seems like a small misstep to me. That's all.
Well, at the very least, Akamarured did bring this list himself. Maybe he has some hidden info, well, a similar kind of list himself. Maybe he has some kind of thought behind this. Perhaps he thinks he can just kind of heal away all the damage or ward it off with Zeus's or something like that. There's many ways this could go.
Now, this matchup I am very familiar with. The big wild card is the Emeralda. So before, Emeralda didn't exist, right? Vengeance Blood was still really good. It could beat Dragon. It was one of the better decks against Dragon. With the addition of Emeralda, I think it is even more in favor of Vengeance Blood. I thought before that if you were playing Ramp Dragon, the Sogquill version, you can actually just overheal enough to where it never matters what the Vengeance Blood player is doing unless they beat you very, very early. But Emeraldas make it so even your endgame isn't really that good anymore. Like, you play down a Bahamut, they play an Emerald to hit you for 4. What's your response? Play another Bahamut, I'll play an Emerald to hit you for 4. You know what I mean? It never feels good to just stick a big threat against Vengeance Blood when they have something like Emeralda.
Right. Even to compare Emeralda to some other cards that kind of are capable of threat neutralization, imagine if Tsubaki had Storm rather than...
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that's exactly kind of like what we're seeing come out of it, and that probably is just alone the edge Meow needs. I mean, Akamarured looked at Meow's Shadow List, thought, this is super tech versus Control, I don't want to deal with it. But perhaps also runs into the fact that Meow's Vengeance Blood list looks to me to be extremely teched against Control as well.
May we meet again.
Exactly right. He's got the Devil of Vengeance, which is not very good against aggro, but can be, but definitely better against Control because it's just hard to remove the threat. A 3-play 0.44, very hard to deal with. Is still running all the Diabolic Brains. It's probably just a necessity in the deck. But everything else looks pretty straightforward.
I mean, even just some cards that don't seem super aggressive, like Scarlet Cerber, are capable of putting on so much value in this matchup particularly.
Honestly, I think it's just, this is a more of a card draw turn again. Like, I think I play Belphegor into Diabolic Brain and set up to possibly push out another Evo from Akamarured. Maybe even pull out a Breath of the Salamander. Because there isn't really an aggressive line that Meow has at the moment. He only has a Blood Wolf to really extend damage this turn. So I think I would just opt for some more card draw here.
Yeah, I agree with this. Oh, goes for Devil of Vengeance. Interesting. Well, opting into a 6/6 body if he wants to evolve the 4/4. Urias also makes a lot of sense here, but I was about to mention, evolving either Devil of Vengeance or Belphegor is super smart here. Because if Akamarured Red's next turn is wanting to try to heal and ramp with Sybil, assuming he had it, then that's a 6-3 that's now posing a trade threat. Sybil no longer has the 7 defense to be able to take care of it.
However, Breath of the Salamander will not only deal with this board, it will also keep the Dragon Summoner alive for however much relevance that is.
Now, how does he approach this turn 6 now? Perhaps just Breath of the Salamander, trade into the Urius that is pretty slow.
100%, that's what I would do. I don't have it, like, I could ramp this turn, but what am I ramping into? I'm ramping into 8. I don't need to do that. I already have Sahaquill. So I think just wiping the board clean and not taking any damage this turn is about the best thing I can do.
That being the play locked for Akamarured Red, then I guess we toss it back. What? Like, how does Meow continue to develop here? He hasn't really put any damage up yet.
Right.
Is this a card draw turn as well, do you think? Into the Belphegor?
I think last turn was. I think this turn is. I think you just need more options. Right now, your options are very limited. You have a very defensive hand. You need to draw a lot more offense. I wouldn't have even evoed the turn earlier, honestly. I think you need to save all those evos for damage, especially against a deck that has Israfils, Lucifers, Sahaquills. You can't really afford to be throwing away your evos. That's not really a throwaway. Like you did say, it did set up an anti-turn for Sybil, if that was the play. But now we're just thinking about how do I actually finish this game out. Right now, there's not really a clear line. I would opt for Belphegor. I would keep opting for Belphegor until I found a more straightforward line here.
I think most importantly, he wants to find his Emeraldas. I think that would be super good for to have in hand, just waiting. Because now he knows Akamarured Red's going into Sahaquill. These are Bahamut's that could be attacking into anything. It could be Israfil attacking into anything. It's very difficult to kind of hedge a board against that kind of thing. Ooh.
Here we go. See, the other thing that I was thinking of too is if you play the Belphegor the turn earlier, it gets you further into your deck, right? You have a chance to draw your Dark Air Jammers, your Dark Generals, like those things. Like, say for instance, he played this last turn, he could have Dark General and Evo'd face this turn while also dealing with board and getting damage in, right? And now he's stuck with just filling out the board, not doing anything. Now they are in hand, so they do become damage threats, but they take longer to deploy because he waited longer to draw them.
Indeed, and I think things are only starting to look better and better for Akamarured Red's hand here. Because he can just evolve Sahaquill, and no matter what he pulls from it, that is a clear board from Meow. And Meow does not have anything like Emeralda to kind of swing back onto the board. Well, he does have Diabolic Drain alongside other tools, but...
That being said, though, Akamarured Red doesn't have any healing tools at the moment. He doesn't have access to Lucifer, Israfil, there's no Sibyls in hand. So if he doesn't draw one of those fast enough, he could just die to consecutive hits from things like Dark General and Blood Wolf.
One of the most noteworthy qualities of Vengeance Blood is that its damage is not gradual. It all comes in at once, it feels like.
Yeah. A play that I might have even considered if I'm Akamarured Red here is playing the Sahaquill into Zeus and actually just attacking face with the Zeus to put enough pressure on Meow to say, if you actually don't deal with my board, you're just going to lose. I could have lethal next turn, make you play reactive. If I can make the Vengeance Blood player play reactive every single turn, I know that I'm ahead, especially because I know I don't have any healing in my hand. I need to say, okay, I have lethal, right? Like, you're going to die, so that you have to play reactive against me. Because right now, technically there does have to be some reaction because there's a 6/5 against 8 life, right? But other than that, it's not as worrisome. If Meow was at 3, this game might already be over because even the 1/1 is threatening lethal at that point, right?
Yeah, I was about to say one of the scariest things about Akamarured Red's draw there was he has a Zeus in hand. Sahaquill had the option to actually just ignore everything else and go face and try to set Meow to as low as possible, though Akamarured doesn't have a particular follow-up other than like Dragoon Scyther and Prey to kind of get past things.
But that's enough, right? Dragoon Scyther evolved plus this 1/1, you know, could be lethal, something like that. But without dealing the extra damage, Meow back up to 12, playing more of a control game here. I don't think this is a bad play. He sets himself to 12. It still opens up Blood Wolf into Dark General and things like that, going into turn 8, which is not bad.
Indeed. I think a Scarlet Saber is nice to have on board here from Meow, but as we've been tracking, Akamarured Red's only getting better in his position.
Yep, and he did draw a heal option with that Sybil, so feeling a little bit better about his position as well. Yeah,
How does he
I don't know if Meow is going to be able to close out the game fast enough is the problem. Like, Akamarured has actually been the aggressor this game.
I think if he has a chance, it comes down to Akamarured does have a lot of threats, but if he never has lethal, then he will still lose despite this hand to a series of Emeraldas. There are 3 in Meow's deck, and they're sitting in the bottom 25, which means
That's
it's
true.
a pretty strong chance he is going to find one of them in a pretty timely fashion, even.
So this is feeling like a Dark General into Diabolic Drain? And then just smash face?
It's a tough call. Diabolic Drain puts him out of Vengeance, and he doesn't have another activator.
It's true. But I think if you're Akamarured, you still have to be dealing damage, right? You can't just stop.
I think 4 damage is probably just too perfect. He's just like, I have more activators, I have a billion ways to do damage to myself. I don't need to be in Vengeance right now.
Actually does decide to trade a little bit with the Sabrewer. Okay. I don't know why, honestly.
To take a quick glance at things, there is no massive threat of like a Genesis Dragon or anything in this deck, so leaving 3 and 1 would require Akamarured to find burst equal to 8. So like Saha Queel, Zeus, Dragoon Scyther, exactly.
Yeah, but he's dead to that anyway, right? So,
Indeed. Oof. Ooh, this hurts to look at. He's not in Vengeance.
he's not in Vengeance. Yeah, a little scary now. Everything in his hand is just literally turned off at the moment. I think he's just got to bank on the fact that he pulls a ward off of this and maybe play a Disagreeable Demon also.
Dragoon Scyther?
Yep,
Plus
this is game.
what?
This is game, right?
Wait,
Oh,
Dragoon
no.
Scyther plus what, right?
Yeah, that's right. There needs to be plus something else. The breath is not enough to actually kill any of these followers at the moment.
Had Urius been anything, well, had it been another Spiderweb MP, would be fine. But Blood Wolf, and that's it. Contemplating the pre-Evo here to even play around, maybe perhaps like a Scyther Breath of the
I mean, this
Salamander,
is so close to lethal. All Akamarured has to draw is either another burn spell or another follower that doesn't cost 1 million, right? Or that doesn't cost 10.
Mm-hmm. 7 or below would do it. He
Oh,
has time to...
Jesus.
He can shuffle for it with these oracles. He has
He can.
fair economy of time.
Ooh.
Ah, that's not it.
Oh my god.
He missed it twice. That third draw doesn't matter anymore. Ooh, that would have done it.
That would have done it.
Wish I tried harder.
I think you still play the Scyther here, yeah. Gotta do it.
And this works out really well for him because Meow is still not in Vengeance.
Meow knows he got lucky there. You can see him smile. That doesn't do anything against Dragon. At least not at the moment.
Right.
It is a big threat that can't really just be dealt with easily, though. So maybe
Let's
you
say
play
he
this
develop-
alongside... Go ahead.
Yeah, let's say he develops this and Laura together. I think he's still just dead to Evolve Israfil.
That's true. Israfil was drawn.
That is so unfortunate. I think Blood Hungry Matriarch, if you're teching against Control and you want like triple Emeralda and otherwise, I think Matriarch is just not the card. Perhaps this was packed against Shadow or something of that kind, but maybe we'll get to see that next game. But unfortunately,
Yep.
I think Meow's just out of it on this one. He could evolve Laura, but how would you know to play around Israfil, right?
I honestly think that just the extra turn, the one extra turn that Meow took, because this is a tempo game, right? This is a very much a tempo game. That one extra turn he took not playing Belphegor to draw into threats that he could continue playing for damage might have cost him this game. Because he wasn't that far off from game this time. Like, he wasn't that far off at all.
Right.
Like,
Also,
if you
is Meow
consider Demon
psychic?
Commander Laura and Dark General in hand, we're already talking about at least, with an Evo point, like 6+ damage. or even more, you know, up to 10 damage over the course of 2 turns that just wasn't able to be played in time.
He had a lot of potential here, but I think things just didn't really go right for him. I mean, even this turn, I think Meow made like a psychic play there with evolving the Laura to try to play around Breath or Israfil, but there's a Blazing Breath, so not enough.
Yep. Whew. These are some good games today, man. That last match was intense. Might have been one of the best anime battles we've had of all time.
That last match was the most like intense match I've ever watched. I was shaking afterwards. But yeah, today has been amazing. And you know, moving forward, I don't think that Meow is going to like bore us with any of these next games.
I hope you guys out there watching really appreciate the fact that the high level of intensity and stress and everything that goes into these matches, watching these players become more human, Akamarured not being a god anymore, you know what I mean? Like showing that he has weaknesses, you know, and all of the players rising up to the occasion and making these matches go as long as they are because of choices and not just because of, you know, we're just passing and sitting here for no reason. Like, take time to enjoy these matches because we don't get many of them. Not like this anyway.
Making perfect plays every single time you're shown any kind of difficult puzzle from your opponent, that can sometimes be really simple for a player just piloting a good deck. But sometimes when an opponent shakes you down, they've beaten you with something that you didn't think you were going to lose to, we see like what that does to Akamarured and how scared he started to play versus Kionis after a while. That's when you get to see like a player who made it this far, what are their instincts? Like what do they start to play like when they're scared, when they're afraid of a lot of more things than they should be, and they're not really thinking on top of everything anymore because they don't want those same types of losses to start to repeat themselves. I think that is something we've seen a ton today, and it has made today really a phenomenal day of competitive Shadowverse.
That's right. Like what some people might see as mistakes are literally just tendencies that players might have in a particular matchup once they've gotten pushed against the ropes, right? They're just like, I've been here before. I don't like the way this feels. This is what has won me before, even though it looks wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it could be any number of different factors going into these plays when you're pushed up against the ropes. So, I don't know. This has been one of the best days I've ever seen and/or casted games for Shadowverse. So I'm really excited to see how this one shakes down.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But if we're going forward, we're going to have to see Meow be able to take the fact that he just lost 2 Uriuses in a row to 2 zombie parties. I think that is one of the roughest possible ways that he can start here. He doesn't have a Vengeance activator on 4 either.
I think this might just be a push for Vengeance now. Like, I think this turn I would go Razor Claw, Bloodwolf, Evo Face. And try to just push for Vengeance as soon as possible, because I don't see with a Demon Commander Laura in hand, as well as an Emeralda, not pushing yourself to Vengeance being the correct play.
Oh, interesting. Going for 2 Blood Wolves. Trading?
And trading?
Into Andrialphus? Hold on.
Take what? So the reason why I was thinking Blood Wolf Razor Claw is because you can Evo Face and then you have another Blood Wolf for following Evo. But instead he decided to trade with the Andrialphus. Not really sure why. That's minus maybe even up to 4 damage because of the Evo point. I don't know if I like that play.
I'm a little iffy on it as well. I'd like to kind of see what was in his mind on that one. Akamarured just
now next turn, what does he do, right? Next turn he has access to Hungering Horde plus Razor Claw. Not a terrible turn, but definitely not as much damage as he could be doing.
Imagine like another wolf in hand here, right? Along the line of play that you mentioned, which I kind of agreed with there. That was another 3 damage sent face, put him to 13. And this turn, Akamarured's at 9. But instead, we have preserved the Razor Claw in hand, and otherwise not made that development of 7 damage.
Plus, you don't want to trade with your opponent, right? Because you're trying to get pushed into Vengeance. Like, you want your opponent dealing damage to you. So right now, Akamarured could be at 13, like you said, with a Blood Wolf evoed here, be at 9, and he would be down to, what, 14? With an Andrialphus, maybe even poking in for a damage, so that much closer to Vengeance. He's playing so defensive here. Why are you evoing to kill threats, Meow? What are you doing?
It's unfortunate, but he definitely seemed to want to push Akamarured off the board, but I think the Direwolf play Is this? I was about to ask. Is that hitting a skeleton?
Yeah, if that targeted the skeleton, I'd be like, Meow, what's going on? I think what's happening here is Meow hasn't had to play Vengeance Blood all day. Maybe he's just he's just a little out of focus with it. Is all I can really imagine, because this is, I don't believe this is a correct line that he's following in either of these games.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only time we've even seen him falter in his games. He's been playing flawlessly all day.
Yeah. I mean, I'd really like to see him continue on to at least the next game so I can see my man King Elephant back in play. He managed to pull that off.
Right.
But, yeah, it's just... It's very rough for him the way that this is all developing. He doesn't really have anything to go for. I think... I mean, with the way this deck works, he's not out of it. He could very easily... Well, that's a decently relevant card, but if he were to pull like a Belphegor out of nowhere, that could be a massive swing for him.
It could, yeah. Like, Meow is definitely not out of this game. I just think he's well far behind now. When he had an aggressive route he could have taken. Like, for instance, if he was in Vengeance this turn instead of dealing with the board, if he had an extra Evo this turn, you know what I mean? Like, Dark Air Gyro comes down, can possibly deal even more damage. Plus, we already have to think about Akamarured being at less life than he is. He could be at much even less than 9 at this point.
This is my home. You are my food.
Well, Spiderweb Imp is, like, it's a pretty defensive pull for him here. I don't know, Akamarured at 13, which isn't really a fantastic life total. Oh, and Meow has used up all of his Evo points defensively to try to take the board from Shadow, who is now encroaching on turn 7. I don't see how this line of play could have worked for this deck unless, like, as we kind of mentioned before, like a sudden Belphegor out of nowhere into this massive Diabolic Drain swing. But you, like, that's already a point where you're playing for miracles, whereas he had a lot of other lines of play where you could have played for damage.
Right. The only thought that would be going through my head is I can't play defensively because I need my opponent to attack me. If I play defensively, then I'm just sitting here doing nothing and all of my cards lose value. Every single card that you play in Vengeance Blood when you're not in Vengeance loses value. So if you're not trying to proactively make your opponent or force your opponent to send you there by playing more proactively, then yeah, I just don't know what he does. He's just going to sit here for turn after turn getting lower value on all of his cards than Akamarured is going to get on all of his. So.
Alright, and it's not like Akamarured is...
I was just going to say, like you said, he can still win. There still could be this, like, God Blood Hungry Matriarch draw that happens. You know what I mean? And wipes an entire board, deals a bunch of damage. Things like that, but the game is close to over, I believe.
Yeah, especially here, I think that Blood Hungry Matriarch is bordering on necessary as the next card in his deck.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
not bad. That's not bad with the Hungering Horde in hand. Hungering Horde away the whites, then you can actually trade into the Thane, not be dead, go back up to 14.
I feel like, especially, it's like palpable now that if he had been able to develop more damage rather than trade for board for the entirety of this game, then this hand would be a very strong position to be in. The Emeralda is so close to being active, and he can swing his life back up against whatever damage that Akamarured would have thrown out against him previously. But now, the Emeralda is his only way out behind the White King, and he doesn't have Vengeance.
You play aggressive early, and then you fall back on how you've built your deck, the Sabrewers, the Emeraldas, and the Diabolic Drains, to send you into the late game as your control options. You don't do it the opposite way. You don't use your aggro cards to be defensive. I have never seen a Blood Wolf actively traded into an Andrialphus, and I doubt I'll ever see it again.
Unfortunate. I mean, maybe worst case scenario, Meow just simply didn't drag it far enough. But
that could be the case. That could be the case where he literally just misclicked.
But any level of human error, it's just very unfortunate, because Meow has been playing like perfectly all day. Like, this man has made the impossible happen already.
This is not a knock to him at all. This could just be because he's been playing his other decks all day and he just was a little out of focus with this one for this match. Which, of course, this match being as important as it is, you don't really want to be there. But unfortunately, sometimes that's just the way it shakes down. And now double Ceres. Double Ceres!
Yep, that's just, 4 defense per turn. That is a Dark General shrugged off or discarded from the past every turn.
Yep. I think Meow just going over any possible scenario where he wins this game. Honestly, I still think Blood Hungry Matriarch is a better option. I don't really know how you deal successfully with 2 Cereses on a single draw. I mean, you could draw another Hungering Horde to help deal with both of them, but they're still going to trade into your 3/3 and still do a lot of damage to your Emeralda, even just straight across trading.
The next 3 cards in his deck are exactly Belphegor and his other 2 Diabolic Drains.
Ooh, yes. Perfect.
That's the only
that would
thing I
get rid of the
could think
Cereses, but then what about these other Thanes and Ektars? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's when he draws
just-
his Blood Hungry Matriarch next. But yeah, maybe it also could just kind of come down to some of the mistakes that Meow has been sort of suffering from for a while here. Is just that Vengeance Blood has a very peculiar and very strange way that it plays. I mean, even here we're seeing these are not very easy tools to handle. You're kind of playing with an oil lamp the entire time. So perhaps remembering how much damage this deck deals to itself, he just didn't want to have to leave any room for the threats that he knows Mid Shadow is capable of producing. But during that process, ended up playing so over defensively and never drawing any of his like value options that the deck might have supported him with, like Belphegor, that we just lead ourselves to this situation. He drew an amazing series of cards for an aggro game plan and just completely ditched that game plan to try to just play for a more value-oriented, grindy kind of line.
My food.
Yep. And now I think this game's just over. I actually don't think there is an out for Meow at this point. He's I mean, with 2 Cereses being in play for this many turns, like once you actually, this is the same way I feel about with Dragon Ramp. As soon as you heal to a certain point and your opponent only has X amount of cards left at their ready, like in hand and in play, it's just impossible at a certain point for Blood to actually deal enough damage to finish the game before any deck, let alone Shadow with Ektars and Thanes and such, to just finish out the game on you.
I love you. I just randomly blurted out, "I love you." I know you love card games, is what I was about to say.
I know, Mofu.
I'm not confessing to you here, so. I know you love card games, and that is why I feel like as this game kind of reaches its end, I felt like mentioning that the way you described it kind of reminded me there are a lot of different resources to kind of manage. I'm tripping over myself now, kind of. These games have taken such a toll on me. You blurted out the truth. You Freudian slipped that you love me, and now you don't know how to reel back. It's okay, Mofu. I accept you. I love you too. Okay, what else you got to say to me? I'm just gonna leave it at that. I feel like this game's already over on board. I'm not gonna have time to debate what I was saying for a while. So that's it. Love you, EXO.
Fair enough. And there it is. Akamarured not out of it just yet, showing he's still got some fight left in him, and he can bring it to next week after he cools down a bit.
That is an impossible journey. Akamarured having such a tough time through that losers end of the bracket, and his opponents were tough, right? They were putting him to the test at every single turn. But it is interesting to see kind of how that last Bloodcraft game played out for Meow.